Credit ratings experts are calling for the temporary buffer for debt-burdened countries to focus on fighting COVID-19. If this doesn't happen, these countries will be forced to keep making repayments at a time when they need to be focusing on channeling resources into boosting their health infrastructure in order to deal with the pandemic. Well, to learn more about the proposal, I'm joined by Saveshan Pillay. He's a director at Credit Rating Analytics. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Pillay. So with the economic impacts of COVID-19, what have been the current realities for debt-burdened nations which were suddenly faced with this health crisis last year?
Yes, Nompo, thanks so much for having me on the show. And yes, it is quite a significant topic, especially for the countries in question in Africa. Many of the countries were not in the best of financial shape moving into the COVID-19 crisis. And many countries have been limited in their response mechanism. So obviously, in terms of tapping into international financial markets to access additional capital, and obviously to use those funds as a COVID response mechanism. So prior to COVID-19, countries weren't in the best of shape. The DSSI initiative, which has come on board, has been a fantastic opportunity for countries to forego their debt payments and use those payments to obviously fight the COVID-19 crisis and obviously assist their countries thereof.
Yeah. So what is the proposal around how ratings agencies can accommodate the situation to make life easier for those countries facing the current dilemma?
Yes. So the problem currently, Nompo, is that the rating agencies can obviously assist, but there currently is an impasse in place. So countries have the opportunity to participate within the DSSI initiative or the common framework, but the problem is that once they do participate, countries are then downgraded. So countries are left in a bit of a tricky situation because they need to forego those interest payments and use those funds to fight off the COVID-19 pandemic, but at the same time they are wary of the credit rating implications. So a good example is Ethiopia, a country who really needs it. They recently applied for participation in the common framework, and the country was unfortunately downgraded thereafter. So that's obviously a bit of an impasse and a way in which the credit ratings can obviously, credit rating agencies can obviously assist. So what we've come up with is an innovative solution that we've partnered up with the Credit Rating Research Initiative in the UK. And we sort of come up with a solution that can be adopted and obviously assist a lot of the countries in question.
Obviously, you're speaking to us on this platform. Have you actually begun to engage some of the big credit ratings agencies, the likes of Standard & Poor's and Moody's, around this? And do you think that they would have an appetite to do this, given the rationale behind it?
So at the moment, Nompo, so just to give you a bit of context regarding the solution itself. So the solution itself the project itself was funded by the Open Societies Foundation. Obviously, it's one of the largest philanthropic funds in the world, and they obviously wanted to try and come up with some sort of solution that can be effective and can be of assistance. So we've actually launched this solution today. So today is the first day in which our initiative has gone live. Our intended audience is we're trying to obviously build up a sort of awareness around the project and obviously try and lobby it at the highest level. So the G7, the G20, your Paris Club, trying to obviously get a bit of awareness and look for some sort of solution. So even if this is a starting point in the discussions, it definitely can be something that would be worth consideration and something that can definitely assist. So in terms of involving the credit rating agencies, I mean, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch, they would obviously be key stakeholders to this sort of solution being put into place. But it isn't as straightforward as that. So there's a lot of legal implications, and it would be quite a technical. It would actually get quite technical to get a buy-in from all parties. It's not impossible, but it obviously can be done.
Yeah, it is a bit of a pity that you say that it would be technical because it implies that it would take time. And obviously these measures that you're suggesting would need to be applied now to make a difference as we are all currently experiencing the pandemic. Just in terms of the actual countries that you're thinking of that are really struggling, just give us examples of some of them. Obviously South Africa can't be one of them because we're a middle income country.
That's correct. That's correct. So for example, Nonpo, a good example is Ethiopia again, Chad as well. I mean, so they've applied for what you call the Common Framework, which is a sort of a build-up to the DSSI initiative, and it's on extended terms. And effectively, those countries are in a very unique position because they are very limited from a COVID response perspective. So that's also from a healthcare as well as from an economic stimulus perspective. And the countries obviously foregoing those debt repayments would obviously free up significant funds. That is the case with the majority of countries within this that qualify for DSSI initiative. So apart from those countries, many of these countries are afraid to partake in the Common Framework because they would be downgraded. So it's a very tricky situation, and I mean it's one where there needs to be some sort of solution that's put forward or some sort of solution that is taken up because at the end of the day, this is a humanitarian crisis. Yeah. It's difficult it's different to your other financial crises which have taken place previously. There is a significant human element to it. So I think the rating agencies need to be cognizant of the fact that, look, this is a humanitarian crisis. It needs to be approached in a different way to other crises which have come up. And there needs to be some sort of out-of-the-box thinking that can obviously come into play and obviously assist many of these countries that are in dire need of this assistance or this type of solution.
Yeah, of course, these are unprecedented times, so one would need to be thinking out of the box, as you say. You also talk about some sort of advisory mechanism for these countries, assuming that this were to go ahead. But also just give us a sense of when you would expect the actual support or the leeway to come to an end. At what point, at what juncture, what would be a signal for that to happen?
Okay, so at the moment, Nompo, it sort of needs to be a concerted effort. So you need to get a buy-in from your large international institutions, such as from the G20, the G7, the Paris Club, is obviously the most important. And in terms of obviously getting this off the ground or obviously cancelling this impasse, there needs to be a buy-in from all of these relevant stakeholders. So obviously time is quite critical. So the Common Framework and the DSSI initiative wouldn't be there indefinitely. It is a solution which is available to these low-income countries for a specified period. Hopefully this will be extended until the end of this year. The Common Framework obviously works for a longer period. But I mean, some sort of solution needs to be put in place as early as possible. So that the countries can obviously start benefiting from this as we speak. So obviously, as you might know and the listeners might know, obviously from a COVID response perspective, from a vaccination perspective, or even from an improvement of healthcare facilities on the continent, we are lagging significantly as a continent collectively. So the earlier something can come into place, the quicker funds can be freed up and the quicker these funds can obviously be allocated to important healthcare measures such as vaccination or even improvement of healthcare facilities on the continent.
Indeed. Saveshan, thank you very much for your time, sir. That was Saveshan Pillay. He's a director at Credit Ratings Analytics.